quiet house. I'm not proud to admit how desperate I was for a place of my own. After moving out of my cramped studio apartment, I found a sublet in a Victorian fixer-upper on the edge of town. The rent was absurdly low, and the landlord said only that the previous tenant left in a hurry. Perfect. I signed the lease without reading the fine print. From the moment I stepped inside, it felt wrong. The hallway smelled faintly of mothballs and something metallic, like blood. The floorboards creaked under my boots even when I stood perfectly still. I shrugged it off as old house quirks. I was tired of city noise and wanted solitude. This place delivered. I spent the next day unpacking in the living room, sunlight slanting through dusty windows, illuminating motes of dust. The walls were painted a flat gray, drab, but at least neutral. I stacked boxes in corners and wiped down surfaces. By evening, the house felt inhabited, though no one else was home. At night, I slept with my door open, promising myself I'd buy better locks in the morning. But around 2 a.m., I jolted awake to the softest of sounds, a faint scratching, like someone fingernails tracing the wall outside my bedroom. I froze, heart thundering. The hallway was pitch black. I whispered, "Hello?" My voice sounded small. The scratching stopped. Minutes passed. Nothing. When my pounding heart slowed enough, I forced myself up and flicked on the light. No one. The wall was unblemished. I lay back down, telling myself it must have been a rat. Eventually, I drifted off. The next day, I found claw marks on the banana I'd left on the kitchen counter. 3 long gashes, as though something had sliced it open. I live alone. No pets. I looked around. The windows were locked. Unease rose in my chest. That afternoon, I called my friend Marco. I told him about the noise, the marks. He laughed. Maybe it's just mice, man. Old houses have critters. I agreed, weakly. But when I hung up, I noticed a smear of red at the edge of the countertop. It looked like dried blood. I wiped it with a rag. Pinkish residue streaked the cloth. I dropped the rag and left the room. That night, I slept on the couch. The bedroom door stood open. I kept the lights on, but the far corner of the living room remained in deep shadow. I stared at that shadow until fatigue claimed me. At 3:13 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text. From an unknown number. Do you see them? My throat went dry. I sat up, fumbling for the phone. No new notifications, no number in my list. I locked the phone and tossed it aside, telling myself to ignore it. Moments later, I heard it, a quiet, guttural hum, like someone singing off-key in another room. It drifted down the hallway, closer to the living room. It wasn't a song I recognized, just a series of warped notes that grated against my mind. Clutching a throw pillow, I crept toward the hallway. The hum stopped as I reached the threshold. I peeked around the corner. Empty. Yet in the dim light, I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. A figure, hunched, standing still at the end of the corridor. I yelped and stumbled backward. When I looked again, it was gone. My breath fogged in the cold air. Did I imagine it? I turned on every lamp in the house. Still no one there. Determined to prove I wasn't going mad, I set up my phone to record video. I placed it on a stack of books in the living room, hit record, and sat back down. I stayed up until 5 a.m., eyes glued to the camera feed. Nothing happened. I convinced myself the scratches, the marks, the whispers were products of my stress. I turned off the camera and collapsed onto the couch. When I woke at noon, the front door was wide open. The latch had been pushed back, the chain broken. A cold gust blew through the house. My blood ran cold. I dropped my coffee mug. The porcelain shattered, and a smear of dark red bloomed on the hardwood floor. I found the camera where I'd left it. The screen was cracked, but I managed to scroll through the footage. For the first hour, nothing. Then at 3:13 a.m., the feed cut to static. A moment later, a pale hand with impossibly long fingers swept across the lens. And then, black. I sat frozen, staring at the frame, as the final seconds showed something dragging the camera off its perch. My throat closed. I called Marco again. He drove out to help. We arrived just as dusk settled. The house looked normal through the windows, warm light, no sign of break-in from the street. Inside, we walked tentatively through each room. In the dining room, I found faint footprints in a thin layer of dust, leading from the door to the center of the room. They were too long and narrow to be human. Each print ended in a claw-like imprint. They vanished beneath the table. "It's an animal," Marco said, though his voice wavered. "A big one?" I asked. He shrugged. We checked the basement door. It was padlocked, as I'd locked it. Now the lock was bent, teeth ground flat. The door creaked open if you pushed hard. We stood side by side, flashlights sweeping downward. The basement was lined with old boxes and a single bare bulb swinging on a frayed wire. There, scrawled in blood on the wall, were words in shaky script. "Stay with us." I felt bile rise in my throat. My legs gave way. Marco caught me. We fled the house. I haven't returned. The lease is broken. But sometimes, late at night when the wind howls and I can't sleep, I hear that hum again, drifting through my mind, calling me back. And I wonder if I'll ever truly be alone again.